Hey there, fellow hungry travelers. Mark here with Wolters World, and today we're in York, England. And today we're going to answer Angie's question. And Angie asks, how is eating out different in different countries? And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of differences of eating out depending where you go around the world. So let's get started. And the first thing I want to talk about is the timing or the hours of eating in different countries. So for in the US, breakfast is from 7 to 10, and lunch is from noon until 1, and dinner is from 5 until 7. When other places around the world, it can be very different. For example, if you go to Spain, the restaurants might not be open for breakfast. Lunch, like they open the doors at 12, but people are having lunch from 1 to 3. Or other times, like let's look at Portugal. You want to go have dinner? Well, you're used to having dinner from 5 to 6 or 7 in the US. Well, in Portugal, they don't even come back to start cooking until 7 p.m. at night to get the first meals out at 7:30 or 8 p.m. at night. So it's very much a different kind of thing. Going to Argentina, yeah, I live there. I remember seeing families going out to dinner at 10 or 11 p.m. and seeing the kids eating dinner at midnight at a restaurant. So just the timing that's there is going to be different. And so you might want to be prepared for that, because I know, travel with my dad, who's an old farm boy, for him, dinner is at 5 p.m. Surprised he doesn't call it supper, okay? But for him, when we go, we know, like, hey, we got to figure these things out. We got to get him a snack, about 4 or 5 o'clock so he can make it until we can have dinner at 9 p.m. in Portugal, So we had to think about those things in terms of the timing, like when you eat, okay? Another timing difference I want to talk about is the length of time of eating. So if you're in the U.S., you have to realize it's very much a competition how fast you can eat. Hence why a lot of people look like me, because let's get it all in there. Yeah, I won. I ate it all as fast as I could. You have that in the U.S. because really the restaurants are trying to turn people over as quick as possible. Feed them, get them their drinks, get them their food, get them their bill, move on. Next person sits down. So we're making more money selling more food. We're making more money with more tips. And so they're kind of helping people through quicker to get through the restaurants. Whereas some places you go, you're going to France, you're going to dinner. It's not a half-hour dinner. It's not an hour dinner. It's a 2 or 3 hour experience of going out to eat. Okay, so that's going to be something you have to really think about, because there's different places around the world. You go to a rodizio in Brazil where all that meat is, you're going to be there for a couple hours of just eating meat and maybe a sushi here and there for some reason. You have those different things. So do be aware of that, because the length of time that people eat can influence it. So if you're going to be meeting your friends when you're traveling and they're locals, you want to meet them for lunch, you might want to say, okay, if lunch, they're going to have lunch at 2, and it's usually a 2 or 3 hour lunch, maybe the museums will be closed by the time we finish. Maybe I don't go have lunch with them. Maybe I have dinner with them instead. So you kind of want to plan around that. Another thing I think is important about meals, especially for Americans coming abroad, is the ownership of food. So this is one thing. I remember when I lived in Portugal, my friends would come visit me. We'd always go out to eat with my friends. And my friends were like, they'd stick their fork in my food or someone else's food just to try it. In some places, everybody's food is everybody's food. So everybody can try everybody's dishes and it's no big deal. Whereas some places, it's my dish. You can't have any of it. It's all for me. So that's another way things can be different. So if you're kind of stingy and don't want to share and it's all just for you, realize some places, whatever you order, it's kind of fair game for anybody that's at the table, okay? Now, another thing I think is kind of interesting is when you travel around, you might notice the number of meals you have might be different. Because here's the thing, in breakfast in Italy, it's literally like a coffee and a little piece of toast, maybe. Or maybe just a little espresso on your day, right? There's not a lot there. If you think about different places around the world where there's different meals you might not think of, in the US, you have brunch, right? Which is between breakfast and lunch, so you kind of combine them. Well, in Italy, you might have intermezzo, which is a meal between lunch and dinner time. Or you might just have aperitivo time, where you go have drinks and a little snack with your friends at a bar after work. So there could be different types of meals you might have with your friends. And how people eat may be different. When I lived in Finland, I remember the big meal of the day was at lunchtime. That's when you ate your big meal, because at dinner, when you went home to your family, you just had some bread and cheese and some cold cuts, and that was dinner. Okay, so think about the different types of meals that people have. That might be different. And that kind of leads into the next difference, which I would say would be portion sizes, okay? If you go to the U.S., whenever you order food in the U.S., it seems like it's enough food for 2 people. And calorically, it's probably enough for 3 people, all right? So you use these big portions in the U.S., and here in the U.K., you get big portions as well. Portugal, oh my God, they give you so much food, it's insane. But other places, it's more dainty sizes. So knowing how portion sizes differ in different countries can help you know how to share your food better, but also know how much you should order. Because some places, I'm like, look, you go to the U.S., you don't really need to order appetizers because you're going to have so much food anyway, you don't need it. But if you're going to France, we sometimes have smaller portion sizes. Yeah, I will have the onion soup beforehand because I know I'm going to have room later on with the food that comes because it's not big portion sizes, okay? And then let's talk about the freebies, or the things you think are free, or the things that look like they're free, but then you end up getting charged for later on because you didn't know it wasn't free kind of stuff. Because if you're coming from the U.S., if you're in the U.S. and you go to a Mexican restaurant and they put chips and salsa on the table, it's free. You get free bread and butter when you go to a restaurant. They bring that. It's free. You have these things. Ice water is free in a lot of places in the U.S. So you have this kind of free stuff mentality. Free refills on your soda. Yeah, you're kind of used to that in the U.S. Here in the U.K., there's some places that have free refills as well, and they give you free bread at places too. But some places they don't. Like you go to Portugal, they'll put down olives, they'll put down bread, they'll put down butter, they'll put down a cheese for you. And you think, oh, this is like part of the deal. Oh, no. Portugal, you have to pay for the bread, you have to pay for the butter, you have to pay for the olives. So one thing I want to tell you is anytime they give you stuff and you're not sure if it's free or not, one, look at the menu, because the menu will tell you, oh, no, that you have to pay for those olives, you have to pay for the bread. It'll say in the menu like in Portugal. But don't be afraid to ask the servers, like, is this free? And they say, no, it's not, then you know. Okay, because sometimes those freebies you're not sure about. And I know for a lot of tourists from the U.S., they don't realize that because they're thinking, oh, I got a Coke, and I'll just get another Coke, and then they end up having 5 Cokes, which you really shouldn't have anyway. But they'll have like all those. They're like, why is my bill so high? Well, you had $5 Cokes, so it's $25. You're like, oh, I didn't know. So you need to realize that the freebies aren't something that's in every culture when it comes to eating, okay? Now, there are a lot of other things that are different, but I thought I'd just give you kind of the biggest overall differences, Angie, in terms of how eating out's different in different countries around the world. What are some things that you've seen? What are some of your experiences of eating out around the world that was different from back home? Let us know in the comments below so we can share our stories to help other travelers be ready for eating wherever they are in the world. And have a great time, and I'll say bye from here in York, England.